Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Ruach HaKodesh. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And for today's headlines, this is some pretty interesting information, starting off with what the CEO of OpenAI, I believe he's the CEO. I mean, at this point, there's so many titles that it doesn't really matter. But this is what he's saying, okay? OpenAI's Sam Altman warns that the next AI models could be misused by terrorist groups to create novel pathogens. That's no longer a theoretical thing, or it's not going to be for much longer, and agrees that there could be a world-shaking cyber attack this year. Let's run that back again, slow, so it sinks in, right? He agrees that there could be a world-shaking cyber attack this year. Now, he's starting to sound like the Bill Gates of the tech industry, right? And why so specific? I mean, we're gonna listen to the video and see. Maybe the person he was speaking to asked him that question directly, and then he just said yeah. But you know, usually you'd hear something like, it's possible that at some point in the future we could see something like this with said potential. But you know, this year, that's interesting. Now, before I play this, I just wanted to also pull up here. There is a model that was developed by Anthropic called Mythos. And let me just type in here, dangerous. They're saying this, I'll just read this here. But it says Mythos is the first AI model ever to be restricted from users because of its destructive cybersecurity potential. The ability to identify zero-day software vulnerabilities previously resided only with highly specialized and knowledgeable cybersecurity experts and hackers, no more. Now, zero-day software vulnerability means, let's say some company develops some software, right? A zero-day vulnerability is the first or immediate, a vulnerability is like a hole. Imagine a back door or some place that wasn't securely patched that you can used to get access, unrestricted access into a system. That's what some hackers would do. They would look for vulnerabilities. So how is the code written? Maybe the programmer forgot to put a certain check over here that allows you to find a way to, break that part of the code or access a certain part in the software and then cause it to do what you want it to do, right? Even the tiniest sliver of some vulnerability can be very dangerous, right? It gives them access. Now, as we just read here, and we'll go back to what Sam Altman was just saying, but as we just read here, this is something that used to be only restricted with highly specialized and knowledgeable experts and hackers, because it takes a lot of like you need to have a very deep and well and solid understanding of machines at a very low level and at a high level, how web development works, like all these things, to be able to even have a chance at finding some of these vulnerabilities. And for some of them, you need to run all types of just algorithms against the software to see if you can find something. They call that brute force, right? When you have an AI model that can crunch out numbers and do repetitive tasks and try so many different ways so quickly, at such a high scale, that's what makes it more lethal. So, this is how they're portraying this model Mythos to be, like Ultron gone rogue. But we'll see. Okay, now I also read something about Mythos here, which was saying that I think they said the U.S. Treasury was reaching out to Anthropic to quickly get access to Mythos. And Anthropic was also telling some of these companies to quickly use Mythos to test their software. What that means is they would get access to this model. They would have this model try to actually hack into their software and that allows them to find out which parts of their software has like bugs that they need to fix. This way they get ahead of anybody else, because if and when this model becomes public, people, as what Sam here is saying, anybody, right, whether a bad actor or a good person or whatever, can get access to it, and then they can do, like, think about hackers today, right? Hackers use the normal technology we all have to hack, and they can do some very damaging things. So how much more for a hacker who has a model that is like the core of cybersecurity dangers under their grasp? They can do a lot of damage. So let's go back here. I saw a post as well. I think this was on X. I can't find it, but I'll try to summarize it. But basically, it was actually on Instagram, and it was a guy who said that I think his roommate who works at Anthropic, came in college, that is, came home at like 3 a.m. like completely like just crashing out, because I guess they had revealed, because they told the internal team, of course, right, what this model is actually like. And he's probably on some like, yo, this is crazy, right? This shouldn't even be a thing, but it is. So let's hear what this guy's saying over here.
That's quite important. I would expect the next class of model. I would expect that with the next class of models, you start to see people say, this helped me make the most important discovery of my decade, or maybe my career. So that kind of level, like, maybe not winning a Nobel Prize on its own, but like a significant career-defining discovery. On the kind of knowledge work side, I suspect that, current models you hear people say maybe they're like twice as productive or 3 times as productive as they used to be as a coder. And maybe you'll start to hear people say, I'm able to do like the work of a whole team with these tools. So if it's, me and X hundred GPUs, we can do the work of a whole software team. So that's quite significant. On the scary side, the main areas we currently track in our preparedness framework are cybersecurity, bio, and actually, in the interest of time, let me stop at those 2. I suspect in the next year, we will see significant threats we have to mitigate from cyber. And these models are already quite capable and will get much more capable. And then on bio, this is something we've been talking about a lot. The models are clearly going to get very good at helping people do biology at an advanced level. Wonderful things are going to happen there. We'll see a bunch of diseases get cured. Someone is going to try to misuse those. And for now, when the frontier models are all sort of in the hands of pretty responsible companies, I think we can mitigate those by the companies aligning the models and having good classifiers and good safety stacks. But we're not that far away from a world where there are incredibly capable open source models that are very good at biology, and the need for society to be resilient to.
And when he says open source means it's not proprietary, meaning like proprietary is like, let's say like OpenAI, they keep the code and their AI software and everything like away from the public. It's for only them. Only they have access to it, but you can use it through means that they've defined. Open source means that it's free. Anybody can go and access the whole entire code and basically manipulate it and do what they want with it, with certain like loose restrictions. So that's what he means there. Like if they develop some very dangerous model and they're like, this is kept only for like us and companies that we trust, in the future, which is not far away, somebody else can develop an open source version of that, which is like, well, anybody can go and use this for whatever they want, and it has the same capabilities.
Terrorist groups using these models to try to create novel pathogens is that's no longer a theoretical thing, or it's not going to be for much longer. So part of the reason that we are trying to push also in this blueprint ideas around societal resilience is a realization that AI safety in a world of powerful AI cannot be done by the companies alone. We are trying to push Also in this blueprint, ideas around societal resilience is a realization that AI safety in a world of powerful AI cannot be done by the companies alone.
What the hell?
When
That's
you
pretty interesting.
mentioned cyber and the net.
Maybe this is just baked into the video.
Print ideas around societal resilience is a realization that AI safety in a world of powerful AI cannot be done by the companies alone.
When you mentioned cyber in the next year, something that Jim and I have heard a lot from the AI companies is there could well be a world-shaking cyber attack this year that would get people's attention. It sounds like you agree with that.
I think that's totally possible. Yes, I think to avoid that, it will require a tremendous amount of work, also in a sort of resilient style approach. Again, it's not just like make one AI model safe. It is defenders. We have this thing called the Trusted Access Program. Other companies have other things, but cybersecurity companies, the major platforms, the governments using this technology to try to rapidly secure their systems, the open source stack, all of that. That's quite important now.
So you heard him say it, right? This year. So that's interesting that he's saying that. And the two sides of it is, as he's saying, if nothing is done, this is like he's saying it kind of like it's inevitable, right? They try certain mitigation measures, but then maybe it doesn't really do too much, and then you have a comprehensive cyber attack, right? Like Klaus Schwab said, and who knows? Maybe he knew that. I mean, very great chance because they have this insider access, but understanding that cyber attack maybe could not have come from just hackers with your conventional tools, but hackers using some souped up like super powerful AI models that can now do like it can open up that cyber world to a whole new ball game, a whole new playing field that people didn't think was possible before. Because just like you have breakthroughs on so many different sides of the spectrum, whether it's like he said, research and coding and this and that, you also have it on the other sides, right? It's the hacking and he mentioned developing new pathogens or diseases and blah, blah, blah. Now, what is the counter to that? Well, then governments have to be more restrictive, right? But whenever you open your mouth and you say something about we have to be able to control who sees and does this, that, and the third, that always has a counterpart, which is how are you going to do that? When the restrictive measures you're mentioning are very, heavy, you need to think about, well, that means that you need to enforce this. How are you actually going to do that? You're not going to be towing the line of draconian. You're going to cross that if you're trying to enforce some surveillance state, to prevent something like this. So we'll see, right? We'll see. But that was interesting there to see and to hear. So let's keep our eyes open for that. Next is the Treasury Secretary. This guy, he's getting more and more annoying by the day. Says order on citizenship proof for banking is in progress or process. So I'll read a little bit of this here because this is also interesting direction, right? Not surprising because we knew they were going to go in this direction, but it says here, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent on Monday confirmed that an executive order mandating banks to collect citizenship information on customers is underway, right? And this is ultimately leading into the identification, like that your one main sole ID, because it's not just going to be banks, right? Why just banks? It's not just going to be banks, because if they're using the narrative of people who are not citizens getting access to things that citizens have access to, and we need to restrict that, then it's not going to stop at just banks. Okay. It says here, it's in process. And I don't think it's unreasonable because why don't we have information on who's in our banking system? So this is the push for tying identification with your banking. And not they're not talking about just some ID, your driver's license or your state ID. No, no, no. They want more. He told Semaphore in an April 13 interview, responding to whether the Trump administration was working on the banking order. I have a play, and whenever they mention executive orders or anything of that sort, what they tell you is the cover. These executive orders, if you read them, there's very specific language. There's very ambiguous language. There's a lot of wiggle room, loopholes that are baked in there. So it sounds like, oh, well, we just want to verify you're a citizen. If you want to use any of our banks, could have baked into it a more extensive, wording that says like, well, we can actually do this, that, and that. But I mean, who's going to go and try to read that, right? I have a place in the UK. They want to know who lives in every apartment. And how do we know that it's not part of a foreign T organization? See that? He added, that's like the go-to. Because, if you read just the first part, they want to know who lives in every apartment. Like, all right, damn, you don't gotta know that. Every person, like what you want to know, But when you add the second part, how do we know that with all the things that are happening now, what if this person is this or what if that person is that? And you start to create that hysteria, and then people are like, yeah, you know what? Shit, actually, yeah, I do want to know that my next door neighbor is not some domestic T, right? Or some illegal immigrant. Look at the things that they're doing on the news. So how are you going to do that? Now when you go to try and lease, renew your lease or lease an apartment or buy a house or anything of that sort, we need some ID, right? So they start to tie everything in together, right? Maybe the same identification database that the banks use, these apartments are using. These, what do you call them things? I forgot the name of it, but we'll just go with the apartments and anything else that falls under similar category. At least one Republican lawmaker has asked the Trump administration to implement such an order. The Wall Street Journal reported, citing anonymous sources, that banks could be tasked with requiring people to submit passports under the policy. And that actually reminded me, I saw a post that Anthropic is now, OpenAI for their ChatGPT, they tried this. And I think they had so much backlash that they rolled back on it a bit. But here, Anthropic seems to be requiring government identification to use some of their features. Let me see, government ID to use. Yeah, as of April 2026, Anthropic has begun requiring government-issued ID. Anthropic are the company, behind Claude, right? Which is like another. You have ChatGPT, you have Claude, you have other types of chatbots and so on. And of course, they have their own models, AI models, and all of that. It says here in real-time photo verification. See that? It's not just upload a picture of your ID. No, they want to upload a picture of your ID and then turn on your camera and take a picture of yourself so we can verify. We can verify this is actually you. For some users to access certain features within its AI model, Claude. This move described as KYC or Know Your Customer approach for AI is designed to prevent misuse and force usage policies and meet legal obligations. So you see how now everything is because the infrastructure is in place, but now it's the push for ID. Everybody, everything needs to be ID'd. Right, we need to know exactly who you are, where you are, what you're doing, when did you do it. So don't be surprised if more and more sites on the internet start to require that. Where are we at? At least, yeah, I think I just read this. In a post issued on X in October 2025, Senator Tom Cotton, included a letter he sent to Besant urging the secretary to carry out a comprehensive review of current rules that allow illegal aliens to obtain financial services and access to the U.S. banking system. Access to the American banking system is a privilege that should be reserved for those who respect our laws and sovereignty, Cotton wrote in the letter. When individuals are allowed to open accounts without verifying legal status, we are permitting illegal aliens to establish financial routes and integrate economically, all while bypassing the legal channels that millions use properly. So, say they go ahead and push this now. Now they get to a state where they're like, well, if you can't identify yourself, so we don't know that you're an illegal, you can't have access to any banking, any form of banking access. You can't open a bank account. You can't get a debit card. You can't get a credit card. So now your only relying option is cash, and there are some places that don't even take cash anymore. So if you really want to cover all bases when you push something like this, you also have to really push very quickly a full cashless environment. Start cracking down on that. So yeah, that's interesting. Next, we have here reports that say Spirit Airlines is reportedly at risk of liquidation as rising fuel costs worsen its financial crisis. Guess what? That's still going on, by the way. Every day that passes by, that fuel cost that's still going on. The prices, it's still going higher and higher, and people are going through it. I think the IEA head just came out and said Europe has about 6 months, if that at most, of jet fuel left. So yeah, that's still going on there. Now, liquidation here for an airline company, this isn't like we'll just sell a few things here and there, or no. I typed it in here to get a nice summary of it. But it says liquidation for an airline means permanent cessation of all operations. So Spirit Airlines is giving up the spirit. It says here, grounding its fleet and selling off assets such as aircraft, airport slots, and branding to pay creditors. Unlike reorganization, Chapter 11, liquidation is a final shutdown where the company goes out of business and is dissolved. No more Spirit Airlines should this continue. Next, something else that's interesting here is what China is now that's something they have unveiled, meaning like they've showed that, hey, we got this product out here. And what I want you to do is just look at this, but don't look at it for what it is. Look at it for what it can be or what it will become. Okay? China's Unitree unveils robot with human-like physique that can outrun most people. And when it says most, it's not an understatement or an over exaggeration, because they have some metrics here on the actual speed of this robot. It says here, in recent days, Unitree posted a video, which I'll play in a second, on X, titled "Unitree Breaks the World Record Again," indicating that one of its humanoid robots now has the physique of an ordinary person running at a world champion's speed. Unitree said, so you have those cases where you have a police chase, right? And then the cops are chasing, and then the whoever it is, they stop the car, and then they just book it. And you got these cops, some of them are out, they're not in the best shape, or maybe the person they're chasing is in better shape than them, so they're able to outrun them. Now, let's say they open the back door, you just see this freaking robot over here just right after your ass on some faster than Usain Bolt speed, chasing you. You like, man, what? Unitree said the robot completed a sprint at 10 meters per second, or 22.4 miles per hour, mph. For context, the fastest human sprint ever recorded was Usain Bolt's 27.8 miles per hour. This was 22.4. during his 100-meter world record run at the 2009 World Championships in Athletics. Now, let's put a bit of perspective to this. 100-meter world run. Look at Usain Bolt after that run. He's breathing heavy because he's exerting a lot of energy for 100 meters. These robots are not going to be running for 100 meters and then, I'm tired, I got to catch my breath. No. That's the reality of it. This nigga running faster than Usain Bolt after your ass. We used to say that it was a joke, but now it's literally right there, and he's chasing you like there's no tomorrow. So let's take a look at this. I put the audio on mute because they're playing music in the background, and you know how YouTube gets about that. Let's bring this back. So this is the Unitree's robot here, who is going to be pursuing people once this decides to load. I mean, it's interesting for sure. The funny way that it runs. But yeah, look at this guy. Yo, cops are chasing you. They open the back door, and this is what you see after you. You turn around and boom, two, three, four, five of these bad boys just went right behind you, just like that. You just hear the mechanical parts. So if they're creating robots that are humanoid robots that are fast, right? They're obviously gonna be able to create ones that are much stronger than you, right? Look at this guy. Dude ain't even got no head. But I mean, they have, cameras around so they can see and detect where they're going. So like I said, don't look at it just for what it is, but for what it will become. Today it looks like this, right? And you're like, yo, this looks kind of funny. But with the speed and the pace at which technology is advancing, tomorrow it might look like the robot from iRobot, more fleshed out. Look at this guy. You got a gun on him, And so now ask yourself, why even invent something like this? Oh yeah, they can work in factories and so on. Okay, but then what else can they do? Huh? Yeah, I mean, it doesn't take much until somebody comes out and says, yo, you know what? We can actually use these for patrols. We can use these to chase certain criminals. We can use these to enforce certain, do some law enforcement. So now this guy is chasing you, or this thing is chasing you with an AR-15 mounted on its back and maybe on its shoulders too, and it has weapons on it. Now what? So look at it for what it can become or what it will become. Last one here, which just lines up with Joel 3, right? That's the precept that should come to mind. So it says, from trucks to tanks, Pentagon looks to automakers to rebuild America's arsenal. With 2 active conflict areas in Eurasia, the Russian-Ukraine conflict in Eastern Europe, and the U.S.-Iran theater in the Gulf, the world is moving deeper into a war cycle. The latest indicator is not only that militaries around the world are beginning to stockpile one-way attack drones, but also the early stage push to convert underused civilian industrial capacity, including struggling auto production lines, into wartime manufacturing hubs. You see that? So, and this is what you're seeing now. If they're telling you that they're trying to procure peace, right? Let's say with the whole U.S., Iran, Israel, the Gulf region, they're trying to procure peace, but they're actively sending more troops. They've set up a blockade. They are now basically reaching out to these auto manufacturing companies and telling them, look, we need you to start converting from whatever you were doing there to now building weapons, tanks, missiles. All right, that's what we need. And it's not just the U.S. that's doing this. What is that telling you? They're preparing. Okay, they're preparing. Says the Wall Street Journal is out with a new report that describes just that, noting that the Trump administration is exploring whether U.S. manufacturers, including GM, General Motors, Ford, GE Aerospace, and Oshkosh, can convert civilian industrial capacity into weapons production as conflicts across Eurasia drags on and deplete critical weapons stockpiles. We're in wartime. This happens during wartime. Things that were used for one thing are converted and used for more war-centric or war-focused needs. Hence, the draft that they've already set where people can be automatically drafted. And they said December. Yeah, don't be surprised if they start pulling people before then. Okay, and now the when they say exploring, think of exploring like you want to, I don't know, buy a house, right? If you want to buy a house, you're gonna start doing research on houses. You're gonna look for maybe banks, that have good lending rates and good interest rates. You're gonna look for maybe a real estate agent. You're gonna probably go on Zillow or apartments.com or houses.com or some website and start looking at these things. That's an example of exploring. And you're gonna start, putting pieces into place. You're gonna have some money down. You're gonna start doing things that are, letting you know, okay, I'm doing this. I got a real estate agent. I found a good bank. I've put together some lump sum of money, and now I'm in the market. And when you find something, what are you gonna do? You're gonna start working on it, right? So when they say exploring, they don't mean that they're just sitting there. Maybe we could try this, or we could probably do that. Yeah, whatever. That's just what I was thinking. Okay, have a good day now. No. All right, the exploration is something that they're pursuing, and it's just a matter of time. And that also includes reaching out to these manufacturers, right? Like if you're exploring buying a house, you're reaching out to these lenders, right? You're reaching out. You're looking on. Oh, this guy. Oh, he's a good agent. Oh, let me call him and see if he can help me, right? You're doing that. So they're doing that as well. So the society that you're used to seeing is changing, and it's gonna change more and more and more. And in wartime, you can expect once they declare martial law for whatever reason, it's gonna look much, much more different than you thought. The post office, right? Oh yeah, that's for mails. That's all people think about. USPS, post office, they think of mails, and then you start like now that's being used for something else. During the demics, right? They did a whole lot of makeshift. They turned certain campuses into sort of hospital style areas for capacity and blah blah blah. You remember that? So now during war, they're gonna be doing similar things, and places that were known for one thing are now gonna be used for another. It says the effort to boost the war economy is part of what Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has described as putting the defense industrial base on a wartime footing. A Department of War official said the agency is committed to rapidly expanding the defense industrial base by leveraging all available commercial solutions and technologies to ensure that our warfighters maintain a decisive advantage. So that's also telling you that clearly this war is not at an end. It's really only just beginning. Senior defense officials told the outlet that Mary Barra of General Motors and Jim Farley of Ford Motor have been briefed on converting auto production lines into weapons manufacturing facilities. The report did not provide details on what types of weapons could be produced in the factories or on the downtime required to convert those lines. So I have assembly lines, but they're not making cars and car parts, and majority of it is not humans really anymore that are actually doing this. It's machines, right? It's the robots, those giant arms piecing this together, piecing that together, and you have humans that oversee it, okay? But with that, they can mass produce a lot of these weapons. Those officials said GE Aerospace and vehicle and machinery maker Oshkosh, I think that's how it's pronounced, were among other manufacturers briefed. The historical precedent is that America converted its automotive base during World War II to produce record numbers of main battle tanks, bombers, and fighter planes to win the war. Okay, so this is what they're shifting to, and if you can't see by now what's actually happening in the very world you live in, then you might as well go and join Patrick and SpongeBob in Bikini Bottom under that rock, right? Because they probably even know more about what's going on in the world than you if you're stuck in this mindset thinking everything is all sweet. And that's not a good place to be in. Now, this is Joel chapter 3, verse 9, right? Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, prepare war. See that what we just read is a preparation for war. In fact, they're already in war. But as it says, prepare war, wake up the mighty men, the men of war. Let all the men of war draw near, let them come up, right? And these are your military, generals, soldiers, all of them. Beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say, I am strong. See, so the plowshares and pruning hooks, which were more civilian based tools used for, agriculture, used to because what's a plowshare used for? You break up the earth with it and then you plant and so on, right? And that's part of a functioning society. You use that. Similarly with your pruning hooks. But swords are used for war, so are spears. So this is the modern day example is what we just read, where they're now converting or planning to convert these automotive, where we're just reading at, civilian, I forgot the word that it used there, but they're converting that into production lines for manufacturing weapons, okay, for war, just as we just read in Joel. So as we're seeing them do this, and it's not just the U.S., but it's also other countries around the world, they're getting ready for this world war, because that is the plan and the determination of Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai. So with that, I'm going to end it here. Lord willing, that was edifying and informative to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai Bahasham Rechak Kodash. Until next time, Shalom.